Hi everybody, and today we're going to talk about two-player games. But before I get started, would you please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below to subscribe to the channel and have access to some more great content. We're going to talk about two-player games. However, these games are specifically designed for exactly two players and two players only. So let's go ahead and get started. The first game I'm going to talk about is Cold War CIA versus KGB. Now, I'm really surprised that this game hasn't gotten more attention. It's been out for quite a while now, but it is absolutely a really good two-player game. The whole premise is you are the CIA and the KGB. You each have the same exact characters. However, when you play them is very critical to the outcome of the game. The game is relatively quick. I would say maybe 45 minutes, but it just has some good depth because in the card play, a lot of times you may have to concede when the cards don't go exactly as you plan. Next, we have Patchwork. Patchwork is designed by Uwe Rosenberg, who also has designed games such as Agricola, Le Havre, and many, many more. This is strictly a two-player game that uses polyominoes. Polyominoes are shapes very similar to Tetris. What you're doing in this game is you are building a quilt. That's right, you are making a quilt with the little patches of the polyomino shapes. You're trying to fit them into a 9x9 grid, and you have X amount of turns because every time you lay a patch down, it costs you movement and it also costs you buttons. So when you have made enough moves and you end up at the end of the game and both players have reached there, whoever has the most buttons will win the game of Patchwork. Next, I'd like to talk about Hanamikoji. Now, Hanamikoji is one of my absolutely favorite games. It is strictly a two-player game, and the thing about it is it only has 21 cards, and I really do love those games that have a limited amount of cards, but it gives you so many options. Now, don't let the amount of cards fool you because this game is a real brain burner. And the whole object is either gaining the majority of the geishas on the board or getting to 11 points because certain geishas are worth certain points. You each have the same exact 4 options to play in a round, but when you play them and how you play them is critical to the outcome of the game. I think you'll really enjoy Hanamikoji. Twilight Struggle. Now this is a two-player game. Now, the reason I'm being a little bit dramatic about this game is it is very involved. It is historically accurate, and it does take a little bit of time. This is one of those games that is on the longer ends of the scale and could take you a good 2, 3, maybe even 4 hours. However, it simulates the Cold War period exactly, accurately, historically. One side plays the USA, the other side plays Russia. And what you're trying to do is get influence throughout the world in your favor and trying not to let things escalate to nuclear war. If you're looking for a game with extreme depth, extreme historical accuracy, and just so good, I recommend you check out Twilight Struggle. Fox in the Forest is a two-player game that is a trick-taking game. Now, how this plays is certain cards have certain abilities. So when you play a card, a certain ability might kick off to your benefit, and it might hinder your opponent. But here's the good thing. At the end of each round, depending on how many tricks you take, that will determine on how many points you scored. So you need to be really careful whether you're taking a trick or purposely losing a trick, because if you take too many or too little, you will lose points and it's not going to be a good outcome. Air, Land, and Sea. This is a game that simulates war in essence, on air, on land, and on sea. And very similar to Hanamikoji, it has a limited amount of cards. But the gameplay is extremely strategic, and it's a constant tug of war, a back and forth between the players after each card is played. You each control different theaters of either land, air, or sea, and you're trying to get the most points. So you might want to check out Air, Land, and Sea, because it is a true little tiny war game for 2 players. Watergate. Now, this is a game where you're trying to control, to manipulate, to find out the web of deceit. Again, another game that is historically accurate, has all of the characters involved in the Watergate scandal in the early 70s, so you're going to get some history while you're playing the game. But it is very, very good asymmetric play for 2 players, which means one player has certain actions they can take, the other player has different actions. And this is a game I think you'll really enjoy, and the replay is off the charts. You'll be able to play this game over and over again with some serious deep thinking, excellent historical accuracy, and a great game. Lord of the Rings, The Confrontation. This game has a Stratego aspect to it, if you're familiar with that. In Stratego, you put your army or your pieces out on the board facing you, and they each have a point value to how the strength, which is a higher number, is the strength, and also what kind of abilities they do. Well, Lord of the Rings Confrontation is the same type of game. However, it uses the characters from the Lord of the Rings. So there are a couple ways to win. Get Bilbo to Mordor, or if you have 4 characters from the dark side, enter the Shire. Or if either player loses all of their characters, you can win that way too. But if you're a big Lord of the Rings fan and you like Stratego and you like that element and it adds some card play to it, I think you'll really enjoy Lord of the Rings, The Confrontation. Last, but certainly not least, is an epic 2-player game that is one of my favorite of all time. Again, this has the Lord of the Rings theme. The game is War of the Ring. Now, this game, I'm kind of a little nerd, and I kind of geeked out on this because not only do I have the 10th anniversary edition, but I also have the special collector's edition. But you can just get a regular edition as well. It has over 200 miniatures, all little factions and different characters involved in the story. And again, the object is to get the ring into Mordor, right? Or for the evil side to take over everything. So it's very, very good, very involved. Again, like Twilight Struggle, this can be a very long game, but it is so delicious, so worth it, and extremely enjoyable, especially if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings. You will definitely like War of the Ring. Well, there you go, folks. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Top 10 Great 2-Player Games. If you like what you saw, please hit the subscribe button. Check out some of our other videos and ring that bell if you want to get notified when they pop up.